And I like to go on mission trips. I love to go on mission trips. Love it. But if you're going to preach to a small village that may or may not have heard about Jesus before, you've got to know that language if you're going to try to preach in that language, because some words are too close. You see, pecado is the Spanish word for sin, but pescado means fish. You can mess someone up. I'm glad you've all gathered here today. I just want to talk to you today, and God's given me a word, and I just want you to know that all of us have fish. Yeah, they're like, no, I don't have no fish. You're a liar, sir. The Bible says that we all have fish. Some of you have a pet fish that you're hanging on to, that you hold dear. Yeah, I have like two. That's brave of you to admit that. That is okay. Your fish is separating you from God. ¡Ay, Dios mío! Where do we go? Bring your fish to Jesus. Jesus wants to take your fish away. I knew he wanted my fish. I knew he's been looking at my fish. Baby, they're gonna be so mad.
Yes, indeed. There's just something about fish. I don't know what it is. Welcome to the show, a comedian, actor, and speaker that's been entertaining audiences all over the country for 20 years. He performs at churches, community, and corporate events, student events, conferences, and fundraisers. He's a member of the Christian Comedy Association and an official artist, spokesperson for Compassion International. Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, please welcome the very funny and talented Mike Hickman. What's up, Mike?
Thank you, my brother. So excited to be on today and be talking with you and everybody else. And I'm excited. It's a good day, man.
It's a good day. It's always a good day to do comedy, Mike. It's always a good day to do comedy, man. Absolutely. You know, we were just talking before we came on. It's like such a hindrance for us as comics that we are not out there in front of the live crowds. And, you know, I mean, there's nothing like that. Now, this platform is okay if you're doing Zoom shows and you got all the faces up there. I don't know if you've been doing any Zoom shows or not. And it's okay. That's not bad. It's not bad. But it's not the real deal. What have you been doing, Mike, in regards to performing and doing Zoom or even outside shows?
Well, actually, so I've been asked to do Zoom shows, I guess, since last March. And honestly, I've been reluctant. I talked to some of my other comic friends that, hey, have you done these? And some have said, yeah, we've done some. But I got mixed reviews on it. A couple of them said, yeah, it wasn't the same, but it was okay. Then I had some that said, don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
You know, and so I actually sat down and sort of transcribed my show to do like what we're doing here, to like, how can I translate my live show to this, but still keep it in. And part of it may be laziness, and part of it may just be like, I think I'm just going to use a lot of this time as prep time and writing and making, you know, the jokes better and work on other things. And then some acting things came up. And so I stayed away from the Zoom shows and did some podcasting and just some interview things such as what we're doing now. But did stay. Yeah. I just decided the Zoom shows, I'll just wait this thing out, and God provided some good live shows, just a handful of them this year. Just you know how that goes. But just trying to stay in the flow any way you can. Now with comedy and acting, and also musician and speaking. So when one's down, you hope one is up. The only thing is, you know, being in the arts, whether you're a musician, actor, comedian, it's all of the entertainment and industry, and it relies on people gathering. However, they found some ways in the acting arena where we can do daily COVID tests on set. And so there's some faith-based movies that I was in 2020 that's in post-production now, and a couple coming up. Other than working on those things, yeah, just a lot of prep, a lot of writing, working on a devotion book also, and just trying to make the art better, hone the craft.
Well, you know, 2021 is going to be really interesting. I'm going to tell you that right now, Mike.
Yeah.
My wife and I were coming out of a store recently. We saw this lady loading her 2021 Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, it was one of those cool deals, Mike, where the doors go up. Impressive. Really exciting. It was amazing, Mike. Yes. She was in front of a Walmart.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. One of my favorite places.
Yeah. How much you want to bet she lives in the Tesla, Mike?
Yeah.
But no, but no, 2021 is crazy. We're trying to figure this thing out as comics. Now, I was like you in 2020. I'm like, I'm not doing Zoom. I did one virtual show where my daughter pre-recorded it and I had to send it in. I said, I'm never doing that again. I'm never doing that again. So I just sat around, I developed this show, and then all of a sudden I started to realize, Mike, you know what? I don't think we're going to be going back anytime soon. So I started to, I made a promise to myself that I was going to make myself go Zoom crazy in 2021. I mean, I've just been doing Zoom left and right, man. And because I had a friend of mine from California, Dennis Gaxiola. Have you ever heard of Dennis? He's a Latino comedian.
I don't believe so, no.
He's out of San Diego. And he said, Maurice, look, I could do an hour and a half like that. I was doing it all the time. How much time you need? An hour 15? An hour? What do you need? I got you. And then he said, I realized if you asked me to do that now, I don't think I could do 15 minutes. And I went, oh my gosh.
Wow.
So, you know what I mean? And so I started thinking to myself, it's like, okay, well, if we wait too much longer for things to get back to normal, depending on how long you've been doing this, Mike, I mean, you've been doing this a while. I've only been doing it for about 10 years. So, you know, I don't know. I start to become afraid of whether or not I'm going to lose my rhythm if I wait too much longer. So I said 2021, I'm just going to go in. I'm going to do the Zoom. And it's been okay because you can see faces on the screen. You can hear people laughing. You can see facial expressions. And, you know, that rhythm and that beat starts to come in. And so it's been pretty good. I think I'm just going to keep doing. I got a show when we get off. I got a Zoom show as soon as we get off this one. So it's just a matter, because there's a song, Mike, in your head. There's a comedic song that's there. You know what I mean? And you don't want to lose that rhythm. So
right.
But you've been doing this a while, Mike. You got a great reputation. I think you can go a while without getting on stage.
Yeah, but I would rather not. Now what I'm hoping is all the prep work done in 2020, that God will just sort of open up the gate here and let that be just released, so to speak, in 2021. I did and it's amazing that this was even able to happen in 2020. But November 14th, 2020, I recorded filmed the Dry Bar comedy special, which is in post now. So that was actually a great time because I was so hungry to get back on stage, and I had just a few weeks before had done 4 headlining shows, comedy shows, which again was a miracle to do 4 right in a row. Just in that handful that I did throughout the year, but those kind of prepped for that Dry Bar comedy. So you know how Noah built the ark. There was no rain in this falling down out of the sky, but he was obedient just to prep, and just God awaits the work. And so you just keep working and you keep working it. And honestly, I could have worked a whole lot harder. I know that, but at the same time, all that prep work, I'm just waiting for those opportunities for 2021 really to, that God would provide those, and that that it wasn't just time wasted with the pen. There's no time wasted in income when you're writing and when you're, honing the craft and whatnot. So, yeah.
So you're in Colorado?
Yeah, Colorado Springs. I've been here about 5 months. Yeah.
So have you gotten well, obviously with the pandemic, you couldn't really gauge the comedy scene out there, but I mean, are there any shows being done? And it's pretty cold out there. I know in Texas and in Florida and in California, they're doing shows outside.
Yeah.
You know. So Colorado, I imagine it's too cold to do that.
It's a little cold right now. I mean, today is going to be more of a high, right around 58 or 60, which is probably unseasonably warm right now, because last week we were down to 7. And I'm from Texas. I live from Austin, Texas. And so I'm used to it being nice and warm, but there's no outside shows going on here now. The comedy scene here, we are back in orange now, so they are gathering at some percentage of lead. There's a local comedy club here, 3E's Comedy Club. There's a couple of Loonies is here. There's a couple of them, and so I'm teaching a comedy class right now for newbies and writing. In fact, that's where I'll be tonight at the comedy club. So when you can't perform, I did 4. That's where I did 4 of the headlining shows in 2020. It's a new club that had opened up, but they're doing things very, very well. But I was thankful they said, we want to start doing this comedy class. Can you? And we need some veteran comics. Are you willing to teach? I'm like, I'm absolutely happy to teach. So there's about 15 people in this writing class. And so we're just going over the basics of everything from stage etiquette to better writing to trimming the fat to you name it. Just going from day one. There's some in there that's just diving in. Do I want to do this? And then there's some in there that's done it for a couple of years. So it keeps you in the flow of things, is what I'm saying, to be able to at least talk about comedy and teach and do some of those things. But the comedy scene, they are doing shows, but they're very, very limited, spread out. But we're hoping that those really pick up. Certainly not outside though right now.
Thank you, Michelle Van Dusen. 2 great actors. Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate it.
Michelle, love that lady.
Oh man, Michelle's hilarious, man. There's no doubt about it. Let me ask you this, Mike. So, and I really would love to hear your response to this from a Christian perspective. But when you talk about the current situation, what do you think this genre of comedy is going to look like down the road once we, kind of get back to normal, whatever that's going to look like?
Yeah, I understand. I'm a little bit on a seesaw with that, because number one, I think there's hunger for people to gather again. There's hunger for people to, when they say, you know what, everything's lifted, go nuts. I believe there's going to be a population of people that great, and every restaurant, everything is going to be flooded there. I think the churches are going to start bringing back in community events, and are going to start bringing back in, outside music and comics. I believe there's going to be that population. I also think there's going to be a population of people that's still going to be like, well, I don't know, because we're going to make it all happen again. And then I think fear-based things, but yet I understand. There's going to be that population of people that's still going to be apprehensive. Like, is there going to be a lot of people there? I don't think I want to go. And there'll be people.
Yeah, you'll still have that. Yeah.
Yeah. And there'll be people that'll continue to wear masks, for the foreseeable future, and, but what we have a need to be social. We have a need to be around other people, even introverts that like to retreat and have time to themselves. We do have to have, that interaction. And when it has been almost force limited, I think that creates a suppression to where we just want to explode. So if we're looking at the entertainment industry, as far as, the live gathering of comedy, I believe that's going to come back. And in acting, they have found ways around with the COVID testing on set. They're like, you know what? We haven't made anything for 6 months, but all this behind the scenes work, the producers and writers and everyone working from home and behind the scenes, they're like, we have these products, these films, these projects that we've got to get out there. So I think there's going to be a lot of acting work for some things that have been on hold. So I believe what has been held back for around a year now, for actors, for comedians, I think there's going to be plenty when everything is released. The thing is, are people going to be apprehensive about showing up for the live things? And you know, will they be apprehensive, or will they just flood the place? So
Right.
I'm hoping for the flood.
I'm counting on that, Mike.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I'm an optimist. I just feel like this is something that's going to pass. And I really believe we're going to get back to normal. But I do agree with what you're saying. There are always going to be those people that are going to be like, I don't know, I'm not going to go, or continue to wear masks and so forth. But I really believe this is going to pass. I really do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, people are hungry. I mean, they're hungry to gather. I really believe that. And when you get hungry, you're going to find food, if you know what I mean by that.
So Michelle says, as an introvert, I love the first 10 years of the pandemic. Today, I might sit on my front porch. Okay,
that's good. That's good.
Yeah. Mike, I want to ask you, man, because like I said, you've been doing comedy for a while, man. Tell us a little bit about how you actually got started in this world of comedy.
Okay. All right. So it's a neat journey, because when I was 5 years old, I started putting on. I'm a musician also, and I started out in music, but it was always very dramatic, always funny. At least I was told that. Maybe it was just like, yeah, you're funny. That's good. That's good. But I believed it. So from the time I was 5, I was putting on shows and concerts for my parents in the living room. I would listen to music off the radio, TV, and then I would memorize those things. I would go back and I would just perform for my family. The arts has always just been a part of who I am. Through middle school, high school, one-act play, musical theater. In college, I was in musical theater, vocal major in music, heavily involved there. But I started touring with bands in college, Christian bands, and speaking. And I was also a youth pastor at various times in my life, and a worship leader. And I would put in comical things within a musical concert before getting to serious things, because comedy was always a way to open up people's hearts and minds to receive even the deeper things. It was sort of a gateway there to of reception for people, So I would usually start out with comical things. I was this comical speaker, but not a comedian. I wasn't called a comedian back then. It was that singer or that speaker. I then added more and more comedy into things. And so I've been performing overall for between music, acting, and comedy for 30 years. About a little over 20 started really adding that comedy in there.
Yeah.
And then I was a drama director in a couple of churches as well, and a drama coach in my own private studio. And so the last time I was a youth pastor, coming out of that, God said, I want you to go on the road this time as leading with comedy, not leading with music, not leading with the speaking. And I'm going to use comedy to open up a platform for you to be able to share the gospel, speak for Compassion International. That came in. And to encourage people. If I'm doing a corporate event or something that's not a quote Christian event, at least at the end, I can use that as a platform to give encouragement and then talk afterwards if an opportunity arisen. So I went out now billed as a comedian, and honestly, I was doing comedy well before that, but it was about really 10 years ago when it was full-time comedy. Like, we're going to do this full-time, and so I really. It was more of a part-time thing mixed with the music and acting up until that time. But I watched comics growing up and was just, wow, how can I combine music and comedy together? And then I saw a guy who I really respect. You might have heard of Mark Lowry. He was with the Gaither Vocal Band. But before that, he was a comedian, but he was also this incredible singer and musician, still is.
Okay.
And he was singing, he was doing music, but he was funny and doing stand-up, then presenting the gospel. And like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, got it. Is that a part of my life? Is that something you would like? And I just felt him say, yes, that's what I've been honing you for, between musical theater and music and youth ministry and understanding where people are and getting into the lives of people in comedy. And now we're going to combine all of that and basically creating a platform where at the end of my shows, I will uh, uh, present the gospel, or I will speak for Compassion International to help get some kids out of poverty, giving encouragement, and also give some testimony, which we can probably talk about here in a little bit. Some things that our family has been through, that God has brought us through, that we thought was going to be a slice into the comedy thing, a hurt, but God used it to propel. So yeah, that's in a very long nutshell how I got into comedy.
So Michelle Van Duzen said that she went to a live comedy show last week, and it was amazing. Even though the tables were distanced, the masks were worn, you could still hear the laughter. And you know, I'm sure you're familiar with dry bar comedy.
Yeah, yeah.
And that place packs about 400. I've had some friends that have done specials there, and so now, you know, it's socially distanced, and you probably have less than 150 people in there now, but it's still a great show. So, you know, people are still doing this on some level. And then Michelle says that you're an amazing worship leader, full of joy and love, uber talented.
Oh, yes, I did used to drive for Uber. Thank you, Michelle. That is great. On the Dry Bar, yeah, I filmed with Dry Bar last November, and so they were giving me the history of what it was like when they were, they said they put about 400 or so people in there. We were doing 2 shows a night at Dry Bar for the filming, and the capacity was 50. So,
oh wow,
to make up for some of that, you know, they have the best tech equipment, so they're micing the crowd, which you should always do, of course, when you're filming. Great show, incredible energy, but they will also, you know, beef that up to, so they don't want you to have to listen to, when you listen to the, you know, 2 years ago Dry Bar, and you hear this thunderous laughter of 400 people in this small room, and now it's 50. It would sound like there's such a drop, but you know, there's still incredible energy, but they have these ways of really bringing out that laughter, bringing it to help match, you know, basically the Hollywood magic there that they'll do in Utah to match that. But the tables were spread out 6 feet apart. Usually in a club like that, you want the tables right up to the edge of the stage where people are there, and so they were at least 8 or 10 feet out from the stage, really spread out. But at the same time, people go there ready to laugh, and they're excited, and it's very complimentary audience. Great experience. Did 2 shows that night, and I was on the night after a friend of mine, Thor Ramsey, was recording his there the night before. Yeah,
it's ideally set up for a comic because they're all packed in, they're tight, you know, and you know, so you got a nice closed space with a lot of people, and you know, it just, and if they come ready to have a good time,
oh yeah,
you cannot not beat a better audience than that. I mean, that is the ideal comedic audience. And every time you watch the specials, I mean, most of the guys are doing really well up there. Perfect atmosphere for comedy. That's what we love. So now when we talk about socially distanced and people are spread out, as comics, we don't like that.
Right.
We you know, we don't want that, you know. Now we really got to climb uphill. But you know, that's where we are right now. And you know, a place like Dry Bar, of course, is still, because of the attitude there, the positive nature and environment, you know, you're still going to do pretty well over there. So, and I'm hoping that I can get an opportunity to do that.
The psychology of being spread out is, and many don't understand this, even when there wasn't a pandemic, when I would do a dinner show or something and they spread people out to, you know, the closer people are together, the more energy there is, because when they laugh, it's more contagious because they're hearing the laughter close and around them, and then it's contagious and it's perpetual. Now, when you're spread out, you hear more of yourself. And when you hear more of yourself, you don't want to stand out as an audience member, like, oh, I'm the only one laughing. And so you quiet that down. And so so there's less energy overall. So you want people packed closer together, and that's what you're talking about, that ideal situation. And another thing, there's a side note, but if anybody's watching that's planning a comedy dinner thing, have the comedian on after people are done eating, because people have food in their mouth, they're not laughing. And socially, there's a psychology. When you have a group of people eating together at a table, that's where their focus is, with the people at the table enjoying the food, well, and having that. And the comedian can easily become atmosphere. If any comedian that's done dinner things where they're like, we're going to serve the food and you're going to perform while they're eating, you can, but it's very, very difficult. And people don't want to laugh with a lot of food in their mouth either. And so the energy is, again, way.
No, it's really difficult. I took a gig like that a few years ago, and it was just really climbing uphill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, everybody's just eating, and you got some people in the buffet line. That's not, and the thing is, it wasn't just comedy. There were different types of entertainment there, but for a comic, that's a no-go.
Yeah. Right.
So you're 100% correct about that. But I love your commentary about how your faith, it has molded you as a comic. You use it as a platform to present Christ.
Yes.
And a lot of comics, Christian comics, on some level do it. Some don't at all. They're just, I mean, I'm one of those people. I'm a clean comic. I'm a Christian comic, but I'll go to any venue and do my comedy, and I'll make it really clear that I'm a follower at some point. Even if it's at the very end, but it's not the substance of my humor.
Yeah.
So, but I love comedians that can make it their substance, because that's when you're really working for Christ, man.
Yeah. When there's no question at all. Well, the platform, your life is a platform, whatever God has given you, and I can do the same show whether it be in a club. It's just, I'm the clean guy, whether I'm hosting, featuring, headlining in a club. But when there's that opportunity to present something at the end, I feel I would be amiss not to present Christ or encouragement or something other than just ending in a big laugh, saying it's about me, hey, and going on. And now offering refreshment to a crowd that is about them. That is a ministry in itself, helping people to laugh that may have been going through some hard times. But I'll tell you a couple of stories that was just really helpful to me in understanding the platform that you have, because I think people underestimate the platform when these people are listening to you and you're giving out comedy and you're refreshing them. They're going to hang on what you have to say next. They're like, okay, what's he going to say next? What is she going to say next? And so it's ripe right there for them to receive some truth, to receive some other things that help. I was doing a show. What town was that? It was a show in Texas. Anyway, that I had given some testimony about our son, which I'll tell you about. A crowd this size, there's going to be some hurts here. I want you to know that if you grin tonight, if you laugh, then you received encouragement from the Lord. You received strength from the Lord, because the joy of the Lord is our strength. And if you were able to laugh tonight, then I hope for a little while you receive that strength from the Lord, and that'll be perpetual to you, and you'll give that out to others, because we all go through things. And I talked about some testimony about losing our son 6 years ago. Our son passed away. And so I don't go into the details of that in the show, but I talk about what God has done on the other side of that, the things that He showed us, and restoration and helping us grieve and grieve correctly, like those who have hope. And after the show, a guy came up to me, and I'll tear up every time about this, but it's just beautiful that he said, when I came to the show tonight, I came here knowing that when I went home tonight, I'm done with my son. Before the show, when I got here, me and my son have been at odds. I think his son was a teenager, just around 17 years old, which is how my son was. And he says, we were done with each other. I said, I was going to go home and tell him, I want nothing to do with you anymore. Wow. I am basically not your dad. You're not my son. So he met me at the merch table, and we talked for a while, and he said, that little 5-minute thing you did at the end, talking about your son and what God has done. He said, I'm going to go home tonight and we're going to reconcile tonight.
Wow.
Because I still have my son. There's still a chance. There is still hope. He said, so I've done a 180. And I did that at a comedy show, you know, and then you're like, that's it. Thank you, God. That reminds me of why I do this, not to harvest applause for myself, which, by the way, Michael Jr., a friend in the Christian Comedy Association, look him up. Michael Jr., he's hilarious, but full of wisdom too.
Yes.
And he said at one of our conferences, comedy conferences, if you're out there to harvest applause for yourself, you're going to be disappointed. And this is what helps me even recover if there was an off night or something like that. Like, if you're going out there and my purpose is to get applause for myself and gather that, I'm going to live my life disappointed, you know, because I'm going to find the one that didn't clap. I'm going to find that, you know, where they didn't respond, or call it it was just a bad crowd, you know?
Yeah.
But if I go out there knowing that I'm going to give everybody this opportunity to laugh, and Michael Jr. had said that I'm just giving a gift. I'm not taking applause. I'm giving a gift and an opportunity for people to be laughed and to be refreshed.
Yes.
And I can leave that on the table. And that's up to them if they're going to laugh or not. But I've given what I felt God had me to do. I can call that successful, whether the crowd just exploded or whether it was quiet as a mouse. And but what reminds me so much, I'm going to pull a Tommy Moore right here. Let me tell you another story. Let me tell you a story. There was a time that I was not sure how I was going to return to comedy after our son died. He had passed away earlier in a week, and his funeral was that Saturday. Now, that weekend, I was supposed to be on tour with a couple of good friends of mine, Kristen Weber and Peter Wolf, and then Scott Smyer also. And so it was the Texas Comedy Tour, and I called him. I said, "Yeah, we're not going to do that." And so they were like, "Understandably so. We understand." I said, "We'll postpone, but honestly, I don't know what's going to happen." So it was only about a month later. I had canceled shows, canceled the tour, but there was this one show, and I'm crying not out of sorrow, just out of joy right now.
I understand, Mike. It's fine.
Yeah. There was a show that I believe it was in Gatesville, Texas, and God said, "Don't cancel that show. Do that show." I'm like, "Are you sure?" Because I don't know how I'm going to respond in front of people.
Yeah.
He said, "Don't worry about it. Do the show." And I felt so strongly about it. I'm like, "Okay, that's going to be my first show back. And God, it's got to be you, because I can't do this."
Yeah.
And so we get there. They don't know our story yet. They just know. And I thought, okay, if this is a show that my first show back, it's going to be the perfect one, because I've been at this church before. It's a really big church. They had the best sound system. They had the best tech department. They know my comedy. They've asked me back. You know, they got a great stage. Everything was conducive for a great night of comedy. They've got the lighting. They can set the mood. They said, you know, and so I get there, and they said, "Oh, we didn't tell you this, but what we're doing, it was an after church show. It was actually going to be a matinee after church." I'm like, "That's fine."
Okay.
You know? They said, we're in August in Texas, by the way. They said, "All right, we're glad to have you back. So we have the trailer set up outside, the flatbed trailer. And so we're going to have you outside on the flatbed trailer." I was like, okay. So now I'm already a little disappointed, because there's no air conditioning. There's no stage. There's no tech. There's a couple of small speakers up there, no monitors. And I perform parody songs and music along with the stand-up. You know, I'm like, I need that to be right.
Yeah.
It's mid 90s to 100 degrees outside.
Wow.
I'm doing about a 45-minute to hour show. I think I did an hour show for that one, maybe a little more.
Okay.
And there was 2 opening acts before me, like dancers and things like that. It was after they had just eaten like a fajita lunch. Everyone's full. It's hot outside.
Oh,
People
man.
have already been at church.
Yeah.
And I said, were the chairs where people sitting? They said, you see that tent? About 40 yards away from the stage, maybe 50, is a large shaded tent that everyone was in. Now, you know, as a comedian, that's too far for people to be away from the stage, especially outside. So there's a field between me and where people are.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh. So what had happened was everything I had said, well, at least to, was totally taken away, ripped out. All the comforts of coming back. There was nothing to make me comfortable as a comedian, as a performer, as a grieving person. All that was gone. And so I said, all right, but God, you told me to be here. So I'm going to be here. I'm going to give it everything. So I'm at the side of the stage. They're about to introduce me. And so the youth pastor's there, and he said, oh, last time you were here, you were talking about your son. He's in band, isn't he? And I went, this is moments before I walk on stage. He brings this up. I said, you don't know my story. I said, yes, he was in band. He was a clarinet player. He died last month. and his face went ghost white. And I said, don't worry. I said, I feel God's going to do something. And it's okay. And we looked over, and his wife and my wife were by my merch table just praying. Praying. I know she's already got the news.
Yeah.
Please welcome Mike Hickman. I walked up the little steps, got on this flatbed trailer. And brother, it was like God put this robe of mercy on me.
Wow.
I felt no heat. I was not hot. I flipped one of the speakers around so I could hear something on stage.
Yeah.
Instinctively.
Yeah.
All the youth, huge student department, all them that had been there before, flooded down and sat in front of the stage. So it's full of people.
Okay.
I recalled everything without distraction. My wife says it's one of the best shows you've ever done. And I'm just like feeling God coursing through, like he's doing the comedy. It's just like, wow, God.
Amazing.
Like I had not felt before.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, so I get off the stage. The pastor comes over and said, this is what you do, right? I said, yes, sir. He goes, well, we're going to have you back again. He said, that was amazing. So I said, glory to God. And I walked over to my merch table, and my wife is just bawling. Tears of joy for a couple of reasons. Number one, I said, baby, I said, God showed me through this show, ministered to me that it is he that does it. And he showed me in my mind, Philippians 2:13. I believe it's Philippians 2:13 that says, for it is God who works in you to will and to act according to his good purpose. He says, it's not you. I took away all your comforts. I took away everything you were counting on for this to be a good show.
Yeah.
And I did it through you. I said, yes, God, changed my view. And he said, now, as much as you have been hurting, the people that are going to be in front of you from now on, that you're trying to give refreshment to, they're hurting too.
Yeah.
Low levels, high levels, catastrophic levels, they're hurting. Now you understand. I'm like, yes, God, I understand. And I want to do this more now, instead of like, how am I ever going to do comedy again? It's like, how can I not? How can I not do this and use this platform? And then my wife said, look at your t-shirt. I had this t-shirt. We picked out Luke 6:21. It said, blessed are they that weep now, for they shall laugh. And it took on a whole new meaning where God can take you from weeping to laughing. And there's just so many stories of this. And that's why the platform of comedy and acting and the arts, or whatever your platform is in life, it is so important to not take it for granted, because people need the hope that you have.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's not just about the jokes.
Mike, it's not. And that is a beautiful story. I wanted to ask you, as you were telling that, do you, because the way you described it, it sounds like God took you to a level of, I can't think of a better word, a level of unconsciousness Do you remember or recall doing that set specifically? You know what I mean? Do you remember everything that you said? Or, you know, was it one of those surreal experiences where you know what I mean?
Yeah, transcendent in a sense, when you
Yeah,
feel like when you feel like you're a part of something bigger,
right,
than the routine that you've done. I would say I don't specifically remember top to bottom all that was done. I have signature bits,
yeah,
you know, that are going to be at most of the shows, and so I remember that. But what I remember most was this experience with the Lord that was just transcendent, which further I think tells how He just takes over and He does that through you. So yeah.
Well, and I love my friend. I love that story. It's quite amazing that God can channel, you know, great humor through a person who's grieving, but yet depending on Him to somehow bring you through it, to do what you were there to do, and that's to make people laugh. But it's on such a high spiritual level. It's inexplicable, really. And I was wondering what you recall about it, but that's just an amazing story, Mike. That's just an amazing story.
Well, and God, if we're listening and we just ask God when we're hurting or whenever, He has this incredible way of speaking to us in ways that we understand.
Yeah.
You know, I've always been an object lesson person, a visual. I've got to see it or experience it to understand it. You know, I'm not that much of a reader. I like to read from time to time, but it's in those times like when you have tragedy and you're thinking of throwing in the towel, God can give you this 180 by speaking to you in ways that only you understand. We were grieving hard, and like, for instance, I'll do another Tommy Moore, tell you a story. The first Christmas, he passed away in August, and then December, a couple of months later, was Christmas, obviously. And I looked and I said, "Man, there's no gifts for Eli under the tree." And I was broken. So like, there's nothing under the tree for him. Then I heard in my mind just the comfort of God and the joy of God saying, "What could you have possibly got him at Walmart that compares to what he's experiencing right now?" You know.
Wow.
And then he went even deeper and said, "You know, you're celebrating the gift of my son, the birth of my son Jesus on earth. You know, here you're celebrating that, but your son is at the party." And then I start laughing, and then it became a celebration of like, wow, he finished. You know, God knows the number of our days, and he finished. Last story, I'll just tell you one more. I was jogging one day and hurting particularly. It's probably about a year after Eli had passed, and I'm like, "God, I really need to hear from you today. I'm having a particular hard time. Show me something today, God." And I have ADD, and so I saw something shiny at the side of the road. I was just drawn to it, so I went over to it, and it was a side mirror that had been knocked off of a car. I'm like, "Why am I seeing this?" And so now the mirror was facing up, and I saw that it was reflecting the sky, reflecting clouds. I said, "Okay, God, I see. It's reflecting heaven where you are, or the dwelling place of God." And even though He dwells in our hearts, we understand. But symbolically, you know, it's the sky and where my son is. I'm like, "Okay, that's comforting. You're showing me that." And he said, I felt him say, "Look closer." And at the bottom of the mirror, it says, "Objects in mirror are closer than they appear." I can't tell you that I started laughing, and I still have that mirror. I jogged back home with it and gave it to my wife. I told her, I said, "This is incredible." I said, "God, I need comfort." And he gave comfort, not just like, "Hey, I'll make you feel comfortable." An object thing that I can just look at and go, "Wow, God, that had to be you, that I passed by that at the moment I'm praying about this." You know, and so it just reminded me that like our son is doing life also right now, just somewhere else for a little while. And then we'll meet up one day, you know, and I'm just going to keep doing life because he's doing life in heaven right now, you know, and everything is okay. Everything is okay.
Everything is okay, Mike.
Yeah.
And you know, that's the thing about the Lord that's so beautiful. We look at things from our perspective, and when we look at it from His, He wants us to understand, hey, it really is okay. You know, I've got Eli's with me.
Yeah.
He's fine.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
He's better than I am, for sure.
But you know, and it's hard for us to see those things, to understand those things, but our faith allows us to see it. You can only see it with your faith.
Absolutely.
But that's the reality. It's like, because we're his children, he has everything under control.
Right.
And we just have to understand, believe, and accept that and trust our Father, because it's all right.
Yeah, because we're like, I don't want to lose control. I'm like, you're never you're not even in control. You got nothing to lose because you're not in control in the first place. So stop trying to keep from losing control. Got control. Yeah.
Mike, you know, Mike, the most heinous and awful things that we could ever imagine, and we go, oh my goodness. And then when you stop and then listen to God, and he's I mean, your faith, man, that he gives us does so much for our psyche. Like, oh man, it really is okay. It's not as bad as I think.
Right.
You know, it's not.
Yeah.
It really isn't. And so when we look at it from God's perspective and understand, hey, he's in control, and everything really, even if we don't get it, we don't have to get it. We just have to trust him.
Right. Right.
So it's just amazing. And thank you, Mike, for sharing with us all. You've helped everybody that's watching and listening. I mean, your story does a lot for me. And I appreciate you being transparent enough to really talk about it.
Sure. God wastes nothing and uses everything. So
he wastes nothing and he uses everything. And it's just wow, man, mesmerizing, really mesmerizing story, Mike. And I just respect you so much for what you do as a performer, as a comedian. And, you know, I've done my research on you. And like I said, there are different types of comics, but and I mean, in our realm of clean/Christian, there's different types. But I really respect the comics that can really carry that banner of Christ and just make people laugh, man. You know, and you do that, Mike. You know, and I can tell when you're on stage, you make it a point that, you know, you're representing the kingdom, but you know, you're doing your job as a comic, man, and you're really good at it, you know. And
thank you. Wow.
I just respect comics that I'm just not that. I wish I could do that. It's not where I'm coming from, and then I have to go, well, okay, well then, you know, God didn't set the dial there for me, you know, but when I see it, I love it. I love it a lot, man. And God bless you, man. I pray much more success for what you do as a Christian comic and performer, man. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it.
Thank you. I received that, brother. Thank you so much.
I wanted to ask you, do you ever get out and do stuff in the, you know, in the secular clubs or open mics?
Occasionally, not a whole lot. Like I said, this year I did 4 club shows, and then I'll be and I've ran a couple of open mics in clubs and in restaurants. Where I either put it together or was hired to host those, which I really like hosting. That's really a lot of fun. So just sporadically over the years, as far as comedy clubs, I'm not against them at all. That's just not where God has opened up a whole lot of them. But I recently began teaching that comedy class that's in the local comedy club. Then we'll also be doing hosting open mics there this year and 2021 at those. You know, then corporate events, I still do. You know, corporate events as well, community events, fundraisers, whatnot. But I would say probably 75% is church based, or at least whether it be church camp, at a church, Christian conferences, things such as that. That's about 75% of where you would find me.
Now, Mike, I have an interesting question for you. You've been doing comedy for a while, and you know as well as I do, as one fellow comedian to another comedian, you know, it's quite a challenge, being funny consistently and so forth, and reading audiences. What is the biggest thing that you've learned, Mike, since you've been a comedian that's made you a better comic?
What's made me a better comic? I think trusting the advice from trusted friends.
Okay.
And always being a student, not thinking like I've got good jokes, I know all I need to know, I'll pick it up on my own, but being vulnerable enough to receive advice. And you'll get bad advice, you'll get good advice, but
Yeah.
asking God for the discernment to know the difference between, okay, that's not really applicable to me, but wow, that is, and I didn't see it from that perspective, and leaving your mind open, open to that. Wow, a lot of things come to mind, really. Mentoring others will make you a better comic. If you are,
Yes.
if you're just like as a Christian, you disciple someone behind you, but you're doing the study and you're in tune to God and you're passing that on spiritually to someone, discipling someone else. It works the same way. You see those coming behind you and you begin to help them, even if it's just a word here or there that's like, here's some advice. Here's something that I feel you could work on, or some things you might want to see. So as you mentor someone else, I believe it makes you a better comic. Wow. Always being a student, meeting your family needs, because you don't need the distraction of like your life is just all about this comedy or all about this acting or all about this music, and or just like any job, all about being a doctor, all about this, and then
Yeah.
forsake the needs of your family. Find out where your wife is in this. Is have you tended to your wife's needs, and if you're not married, or tended to your family needs, or the people in your life that are important to you, staying plugged into those people so that you don't just become this person that's in and out of the door, going to tell these jokes or be on this TV set or wherever you are on this stage.
Yeah.
That your first ministry is to your family at home,
Yes.
and then when that is right, it feels a lot different when you're on the road. There's a
Yeah.
freedom that's there, knowing like, wow, God, I feel like I have the support of my family, rather than going home going, are you mad at me? It's like, no, God's taking care of all this. So take care of your family needs, trust the advice of others, mentor somebody, always be a student, and realize that it's a ministry. It really is, and that it's purposeful. So, yeah, very, very important things that I could go on and on about things that have made me a better comedian. But
Yes.
knowing
Absolutely.
knowing comedians that are better than me has really helped too. And there's a lot of them. There's a whole lot of them. Hey, Donnie Stopa, how you doing, buddy?
So Michelle Van Duzen wants to know if you're teaching comedy online.
Okay, interesting. So I'm teaching just the comedy class at the club, but some of you may be familiar with TikTok, which is another social media thing that's going on. I put some things on there that are either devotion based or just funny, weird, stupid videos. But
Yeah.
in a couple of weeks, I'm going to start giving videos are limited to 1 minute on TikTok.
Okay.
And you can look up Mike Hickman official on that. And I will be giving 1 minute comedy advice and comedy tips, and 1 minute acting tips. And I'm going to alternate a comedy tip, an acting tip, a comedy
Okay.
tip, an acting tip. And I can take questions and comments to make for the next video. So yes, that's the only online comedy that I'm teaching. But and that's about to start. So, but that's yeah. Look up TikTok, Mike Hickman official, and I'll also still be putting on some little 1 minute quick devos,
Yeah.
as well as just funny, off the wall, cheesy comedy stuff there as well.
Well, Mike, I had the opportunity to do a film in 2016 called Love Different with Jen Gotson Chandler and Anthony Hackett and Tommy Ford, which was a great experience. And I know that you're into acting as well. Which do you find more challenging, comedy or acting?
That's well, that's a super good question. So they're almost neck and neck for me, because I've got my comedy show, and I've got that show down. Although you insert and things change, and it's a different audience, and there's things. The acting is like, I have a role coming up where I'm playing a parole officer in a movie coming up in March, but then I've also playing a youth pastor in this youth group TV series. But then I was a counselor in another movie called Forgiven that's in post production, and then And so you have all these different characters you have to play and be genuine and be real. So, and there's a million different ways to deliver those lines or to become that character for that movie. Now, when it's me on stage, that's just me on stage doing comedy, and I've got my show. And even though there's different nuances, so I guess I'm gravitating towards the acting would be a little more difficult, yet it's a challenge that I love because you are becoming these different characters, and that's fun for me. But you're memorizing new lines for this TV show or for this film or for this commercial, and this new blocking that you've never done before. So there's this constant new, and delivering those and listening to directors and producers. You know, when I'm designing the comedy show, I'll take advice from people like we said earlier, and my wife is good at saying, hey, this thing would be really neat if you did this. But generally, I'm designing and producing that show. I'm not under this writer and this director and this producer and you know, this camera direction, and that pulls you a lot of different ways. So I love the challenge of that, but I would say the acting would be the at this point would be the harder of the two.
Yes, sir. I totally understand that. Michelle Van Dusen, in regards to the comedy online, she wants you to put it on Facebook because she's getting kind of old.
Michelle, I will do that for you. I will copy that video and I will make that because I love you, sister.
And let's see. Chris Rossetti says, can you give some Venmo tips?
You mean actually send you money through Venmo? That kind of tip? I'll send you $1, brother. So that's about all
I like what you said about acting, though, Mike, because you know it is they're two completely different challenges. But equal in challenge. You know, it's like you go out to a comedy show. Okay, you got to make this room laugh. But then when you're acting, it's like you have to be able to channel into emotions.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's a whole other skill set that's quite a challenge. And I witnessed Jen Gotzon and Anthony Hackett during a scene that had a lot of emotion in it. Mike, they prayed themselves up to the emotion of crying. I've never seen anything like that.
That's great.
They prayed each other to the point that they needed to get to, and they got there.
Nice, nice.
But it was amazing, and it's beautiful when you get a chance to be in a faith-based film with fellow brothers and sisters in Christ, because you know we're all on the same page here. Everybody's rooting for each other, and we're all, you know, there's a lot of prayer involved and so forth. But the challenge of getting there is quite amazing. It's quite a challenge. But Mike, I got to tell you, this has been a great hour. I mean, it went by just like that.
So fast. I just looked up at the clock and went, "Are you kidding me?" Wow.
I mean, my gosh, I could do 2 hours with you very easily. But I do want to say this because I didn't ask again today half my questions, so we have to do another show down the road, Mike. But
sure, you bet. Anytime.
Before we get out of here, though, I'd love for you to share some advice you might have for young, aspiring Christian comics.
Advice, I would say, be teachable. Always be teachable. Don't think you know it all. I don't care if you've been doing comedy for 50 years. Be a student. Also, take your time. Don't rush your career.
Thanks, Jim.
I did my first DVD many years ago, and I took it off the market because I wasn't ready. It was just too soon. The material was new. I had 101 temperature, but I'd already paid the camera guy and paid everybody. So I thought, don't postpone it because it's too much emotion. There were 15 people at the show. It wasn't promoted. My material wasn't ready, but I thought, I got to get a DVD. I got to get stuff out there. I've got to show people. It's like, no, work your craft. Stage time. Get on stage as much as you can. Hit the open mics. If you can't find an open mic, start one. Have one at your house with people. You know, don't think I'm a star. You know, it's you're a student, and so and yes, you're a performer and you've got purpose. Don't rush your career. Take advice. Get your stage time. Be humble and help those coming behind you. So and give glory to God.
Amen. Great advice, Mike. And how can fans follow you on social media or contact you for booking?
You got MikeHickmanComedy.com has all the tabs at the top. You can hit the booking tab there. It'll also give you the bio. There's a few videos and a couple of devotions at the bottom. But MikeHickmanComedy.com. You can also go to Mike Hickman Comedy on Facebook, Instagram, Hickman Comedy on Twitter. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Mike Hickman Comedy. I appreciate that. And then TikTok is the new one, just Mike Hickman Official there if you want some comedy tips, acting tips, or just see some really stupid, funny videos also. But the hub up there will be the website, MikeHickmanComedy.com.
Awesome. Awesome. And Michelle Van Duzen says, give our love to Benet.
Yeah, that's my wife. I sure will. I will definitely will do that, Michelle. Thank you.
Awesome stuff. Mike, man, thanks so much for being on the show, man. Like I said, I want to get back with you in the future. I didn't cover as many things as I wanted, but it's a great interview, man. I loved it, but I want to talk with you some more, man. So we're going to hook up down the road again, if
Anytime.
It's okay with you.
Absolutely. Anytime. I'm here, man. Great. Thank you.
Mike Hickman on the Maurice Brown Show. Check him out, everybody. A very funny guy. Hopefully we'll all be back out there pretty soon as comedians. But, Mike, I just thank you so much, man. And may the peace of Christ, Mike, be with you and your family, brother. God bless you.
You as well. Thanks, Maurice. Appreciate it. Bye.